When it comes to cat food, which is better, wet food or dry food? Which one should you feed? Well, I'm Dr. Sarah Wooten, a small animal veterinarian with over 20 years experience, and I'm going to answer your question in this video. Choosing the right cat food for your cat means balancing their nutritional needs with your budget. And I often get the question, what should I feed, doctor? Should I feed canned food or dry food? So I say each has its own benefits, and what is good for one cat is not necessarily good for another cat. And I have my own personal opinions on which is better or what is better to feed. Let's first talk about how they are the same. Both dry food and canned food can completely meet your cat's nutritional needs as long as they have a AAFCO statement on the bag saying that this food is certified to be complete and balanced for your cat's life stage, which could be kitten, adult, or nursing, or it can say for all life stages. If it says that on the bag, then you're good to feed that as a sole food. AAFCO stands for the Association of American Feed Control Officials. This is an independent organization that has been guiding state, federal, and international feed regulators in the U.S. with ingredient standards, label standards, and laboratory standards. And they've been doing this for a long time, for over 100 years. And so if AAFCO has a statement on there that says it's complete and balanced for your cat's life stage or all life stages, you're good to go to just feed that food. And that's how they're the same. So now let's talk about the differences. The first big difference between canned food and bagged kibble is moisture content. Wet food is wetter. It typically contains about 75% moisture, while dry food only has about 10 to 12% moisture based on dry matter. So wet food is mixed up and then sealed in the can, and then it's cooked using a high pressure steam. And since the food is cooked, sealed inside the can, all the moisture stays inside the can. Dry food, in contrast, is made by mixing, cooking, and then extruding the kibble into the little shapes that you see in the bag. And then these little shapes are dried and then coated with flavoring and preservatives. The cooking and the extrusion and all of that process removes the moisture. So the big difference between dry and canned food, moisture. The next big difference, I would say, is texture. So dry food is just crunchy. And it comes in a variety of shapes. We've got stars, circles, triangles. The surprising thing is that even older cats that don't have hardly any teeth, if they really like kibble, they'll still eat dry kibble even though they don't have any teeth. In contrast, wet food comes in a range of soft textures. We've got pâtés, shredded meats, chunks of meat and gravy. Those are the different textures that you get with canned food. So texture can be a big deal to a cat, and cats can develop really strong food preferences based on the texture and the feel of food in their mouth. It can be really hard to change the food for a cat that has strong food preferences, which is why it's recommended to feed a cat a variety of flavors and textures throughout their life to prevent strong food preferences. The number 3 difference between your canned and your dry food would be the carbohydrate levels. Dry food has higher carbohydrate content than canned food because carbs are required to hold the shape of a kibble together. If you don't have any carbs, then those kibbles would just fall apart. Even grain-free food contains higher levels of carbs. They just use different carbs than traditional dry food. So, for example, instead of using wheat and corn, they would use tapioca or potatoes. In contrast, canned food has a higher protein level than dry food, generally speaking. So carbohydrate levels higher in dry food, protein levels higher in canned food. The next difference is caloric density. So dry cat food is usually more calorically dense than wet food. Dry cat food actually is usually really high in calories. If you look at the bag, it will often say like 400 calories per cup. And since most cats shouldn't be eating more than, say, maybe 300 calories per day, it can be really easy to overfeed your cat dry food, which is why portion control is so important. In contrast, wet food is generally lower in calories because it's so high in moisture. To avoid overfeeding your cat, whether you're using canned or dry food, I recommend getting away from the measuring cup and instead using a gram scale to weigh the food. That way you get more accurate weighings and portion control. The next difference between dry food and canned food would be cost. I would say it'd be cost. Dry food still tends to be the most cost-effective food to feed your cat versus canned food. I always recommend purchasing the best food that you can afford, and as long as it has that AFCO statement on it that it's complete and balanced, then you can rest assured that you're meeting your cat's nutritional needs. But if you're cost conscious, then I would say dry food is more cost effective. The last difference would be shelf life and storage, which is very different between the two. So let's talk about canned food first. If it's unopened, canned food can last for years. It can sit on that shelf for years. You can put it in a fallout shelter, it'll still be there 60 years later. But once it's opened, it should be covered, refrigerated, and used within 2 to 3 days at the most. If it's left out at room temperature, any uneaten food should be discarded within a couple of hours at the most, because it starts to get bacterial contamination, which can cause food poisoning in your cat. Don't want that. Dry food, when it's unopened, can last either several months to a few years. So its shelf life is not as long when it's unopened. You'll just need to check the bag for the shelf life. If there's any damage to the packaging, the paper packaging, that can also shorten the shelf life. But once you open it, dry food stays fresh for about 2 to 3 months, depending on how you store it, which is a lot longer than an opened can of cat food. So those are the differences in shelf life and storage. To make this easier, I've made just a pros and cons list of both wet and dry food for you. So the wet food, I think the pros of wet food is increased hydration, which can actually help with hairball prevention. It has a strong scent, which is appealing to cats. It has a long shelf life when unopened, and it's better for calorie control. The cons when it comes to wet food is sometimes the strong scent for the human. We don't like it. It's messy. The cost is higher. It has a short shelf life after opening, and it's not good for automatic feeders. Dry food. The pros of dry food, it's convenient and it's less expensive, so lower cost. It's good for automatic feeders, and it's actually beneficial for oral health as well, because that chewing action actually helps to remove plaque from your cat's teeth. The cons to dry food would have to be the shelf life of the unopened bags. They don't last as long. Also, the calories are really high, and then there's not very much hydration. So you have to think about what are the needs that your cat has, because every cat is unique in not only their needs, but also their preferences. My personal opinion, I promised that I would give that to you, is to feed your cat a combination of canned and dry food. The reason for this is that dry food, again, is convenient and cost-effective and complete and balanced. You can measure out the portion for the day. You can put it in an automatic feeder, and it's easy to take with you, and there's a lot of pros. The pros to also feeding some canned food is that you increase their protein levels, you increase their hydration, and by feeding a combination of both canned and dry, you lower the risk of them developing strong food preferences. So I generally will recommend to my clients to feed about 75% dry, 25% canned, unless their cat has other specific needs that they have. So that is all the information I have on canned and dry food. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, so give me your thoughts in the comments section. Let me know what you're feeding your cat, what works. Thank you so much for watching. I will be back with more cat-related content soon. Have a great day.